Perdón. Hola. Bien. Y buenos días. ¿Cómo están todos?
Muy bien.
Sí, muy bien, excelente. Y bueno, sí, Nora, estás en Minnesota. Sí. ¿Cómo te va en Minnesota? I hope everything's going well for you up north. Mariana, too, I'm sure. So, okay. Bueno, vamos a practicar muchísimo con pronombres. We're going to practice a lot with pronouns today. Take your questions, do some practice, do some listening. Just kind of tie that up in a bow. Pronouns are something, object pronouns are something we always have to come back to and think about reviewing over and over and over again, just because that's the way it is. Yeah, it's one of those things that you have to continually keep thinking about those examples and asking about, well, why does this word go in this position, but in a different position, in a different structure? And we just need to, reviewing and covering old territory over and over again is something that everybody has to do. It's a normal part of that process. So if you kind of feel like
that little sheet where we typed in the right pronoun and then it reviewed it, partly I got confused when they meant the word you all. I never expected, I'm just not used to thinking about that.
Yes.
Instead of them.
And and that's one of those things that plural you is something we don't practice all the time, but I use it more because I think of it more when I look at all of your faces on the screen. When you talk to a group, we use the plural you. And of course, in English, we never think plural you. It's just you. Yeah. So that is yet another one of those layers because English does not do that. It requires extra thought on our part that we normally don't have to do.
Let me correct something you just said. In Texas, where they speak English,
there you go.
The singular is y'all. And now, I don't know if I've asked this group, do you know what the plural of y'all is?
Y'alls.
Y'alls? What is it?
All of y'all.
All y'all. All y'all.
Wow. Okay. I had a childhood friend who moved from the western coal mining areas of Pennsylvania, very rural, to the Midwest, like 9-10 years old. And I always remember her family would always say, use guys. And it totally threw me for a loop. This poor girl got more teasing, and I mean like in a mean way, as a little kid, because that was ingrained in her. Everybody said, hey, use guys. And people would look at her like, use? And really, they looked down on that as what a hick way to talk. But that was the colloquial thing there. And so occasionally you get a few things in English that start to approximate, right? What the many things, odd things that do happen in English. And there are some odd things that happen. Okay. Let me start with something because it's unrelated to pronouns per se as a separate topic. I'm just going to bring this up so it's a refresher. Oh, yes. Remember this video? This is the bookend to, we had the very sad and depressing story the week before. And now we got the happy love story here. And there are some little pronouns you see here and there. Do we need to do any kind of little walkthrough, or do you have any other specific little questions on that video before we get into our printer work.
I have a specific question that's around 3 minutes and 15 seconds into the video.
Okay,
And it's when she first talks about meeting Tomas.
primero se presentó como estrella muy agradable.
Just a few, right here. So
Right here.
I was kind of confused whether they got a lot in there rather than a low. It sounded to me like in English it would have been.
Oh, de la conoció.
Yeah, I thought it's well,
Okay.
maybe I messed up. Could you maybe just talk through this little section right here?
Why is it la and not a le?
For a low.
Or a lo. Pero cuando Clara salió de bañarse y la conoció, and he met her. Okay.
Yeah, but I read this as that it's when Clara, exited the shower and met him.
But yes. Okay.
In which that's why I'm thinking low.
If she had said lo conoció, it would have meant she, Clara, met him. But the way she phrased it was la conoció, and she walked out and he met her. There is no word he said in that phrase. The only reason we know that it's he met her is because of that one word conoció, and we've got the la conoció. We know that he met her. And there is no word he specifically said in that sentence.
I guess why I'm thrown off here, and then I'll just say this, and
So
I'm okay because
so Clara came out.
Right, Clara is the subject in this sentence. Clara came out of the shower.
But the subject after e and is never spoken.
Which is why I assumed it was still her.
Right. It is what she did and what he did.
Okay.
And that's a very, very subtle thing. Y la conoció. La conoció immediately says her, he met. That word la is signaling that somebody else is doing that second action. She is receiving the action. It's a very subtle thing. And the word he never comes up. Y él la conoció. It is not phrased as él la conoció. It is not considered necessary to put in the word él. I will tell you, in the course of regular conversation, it would be kind of uncharacteristic to specifically say él la conoció. It would be more normal to say it as la conoció, and you just know from the la that she is receiving the action. So she didn't meet, he met her. It's a very subtle thing.
Part of the problem too with this, I see what Mark is saying and why there's a problem. It also happens in Duolingo when there's no punctuation. The lack of punctuation somewhat throws you off because there should be a comma there after shower, and then you would know it's a whole new phrase.
Yeah, but they don't do that.
They don't do that.
Yeah, that will not necessarily be considered, pause. And now think about it. I'm flipping to what he did instead.
Yeah, because they could have said él la conoció.
Right. So it's a not continuation of she came out and she did something else. It's she came out and now he did something to her. He met her. Yeah. but there's no kind of punctuation thing to signal that.
That you're happy.
And really, it would be kind of, it would be more frequent. It would be the way they have done it here is the more natural way to phrase this. This is a totally natural thing. So here's what happens. And I'm going to say this because I think it may not help you right now, but it will make you think about word order and how it is very uniquely different in Spanish. It is because the subject is often not spoken ever, because everything is wrapped up into that verb of conoció, and because the subject pronoun, él, in this case, is usually not said ever, the word order of how people think in Spanish is totally different from the thinking process in English. The thinking process in Spanish is accepted as her, he met. So when people hear a pronoun, often they're thinking in the order of the her is going to come first. Her, he met. Her, he met. That's the way people think. That's the word order in which they think. So they expect to hear an object first, and they expect that everything is wrapped up in that verb to tell them who did it. Well, okay, obviously the two girls already knew each other. So when we say la conoció, like, oh, it can only be that new guy. He met her. So their order of thinking is to pop in whoever is receiving the action first. That is something we totally do not do. It is the complete opposite of what English does. And it's something that takes a lot of getting used to. And the only way to really get used to it, to be very honest, is to hear a lot of people storytelling. I don't want to say it can't be taught, but it's the order in which those words come out. This is the way their thinking pattern goes. Thinking pattern is, we tell who receives something, now we tell who does it. So it's something to be aware of moving forward. But it's an excellent question. Yeah.
Marilyn, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I know that when I try to read Spanish, because of what you're speaking about, I don't read it literally word to word to word. I almost kind of have to look at a phrase.
Yes.
So I don't know if you teach that or if that's just something I learned. But you kind of.
It's very good. That is getting a feel for it. Yes.
Okay.
That is actually that is a very good thing.
Okay.
It is so okay.
I just thought that might help it.
It does help. It does help. When you're reading, and actually this is a case where hearing stories and reading is the other thing that will get that kind of pattern set in your head, because we can't translate this in English word order.
Right.
We cannot look at that word la in isolation. So when we listen to and or read ideas in Spanish, we do need to be looking at it as a chunk of words that hang together. So we can't use that la, we can't look at la or listen to la in isolation because la can mean the, la can mean her, la can mean it. And la, with no context of what is come before or after it, has 3, 4, 5 different meanings. It won't make sense except in that chunk of la conoció. And the la conoció even is working on the presumption of we have a new person we're talking about, Tomas, cute guy, cute new guy. We have to know that, oh, we're talking about him coming into the picture of this story. So you do it, it is absolutely essential that you look at phrases of how these words hang together. That is a very good interjection. And exactly what you should be doing. Yeah. But now notice in the course of this thing, then she inserted here, after la conoció, Tomás se puso súper nervioso. So you know specifically who got nervous. She plugs his name in. She was good. The girlfriend was not flummoxed by stepping out of the shower dripping wet, meeting the guy, but ooh, he got kind of flustered. And she interjected his name, so we know she was kind of nonplussed by this, but ooh, he got super nervous. And this phrase, se puso super nervioso, when we plug in ponerse with an adjective, it means he got a certain way. In English, they translated this as Tomas was very nervous, but what it really, probably the way you really would say this in English is Tomas got really nervous. That all of a sudden he got kind of the jitters. He became nervous. Se puso nervioso is better translated as Tomas got very nervous or became very nervous. And it means an all of a sudden thing that happened. And the all of a sudden idea is conveyed by putting ponerse into pretérito. It indicates an attitude change that happened like that.
I have one more question for
All
you,
that
too.
stuff wrapped up in there. I know. Yeah. See, go ahead. That's why we're taking time to do this.
I'm almost embarrassed by this question, but
Don't be
when you're
embarrassed.
saying he met her, if instead you just said he met Susan or whatever, then it would be conoció a Susan, right? You don't ever put the
Right.
Susan in front.
No, right. It would be conoció a Clara. Now, and the whole reason for putting la in there is she just said, cuando Clara
Right. It's
salió
only the
de
pronouns that
bañarse
go
y
first.
right. And we don't want to say cuando Clara salió de bañarse y conoció a Clara. We don't want to have to say Clara this many times.
Sure.
So
I'm
that
just
is the super good
clarifying.
reason for taking why la is there. La is there so that we don't have to repeat the idea of the name Clara. We
But
can
only the pronoun goes first, not the actual name. Because-
yeah. And okay, so we would never say la conoció a Clara. When you have that word la, a direct object, talking
Yes.
about a person, you'll almost never, and by almost never, I mean like 99% of the time, because once in a while, you get an odd thing where it will come up, but almost never. When we use a direct object, lo, la, los, or las, you do not hear an a, Clara, afterwards.
Okay.
The reason for putting lo, la, los, las is so that you totally avoid the a, Clara phrase.
Okay.
With oddly enough, oddly in English reasoning, if you want to think and rationalize in an English way, using le and les, why do they repeat the aclara with le and les, but they don't repeat the aclara with lo or la?
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let me show you a little bit of this because it actually is somewhat useful to know. Okay. When we've got, let me pull this up. Because this is kind of a precursor to what's the job of these words and why do we use them? Okay. Perdón. Great. Okay. Now I got my box back. Now it bought me on my Spanish keyboard. Okay. Now we're back. Okay. Por ejemplo, well, we'll just take this as Clara. We'll keep this same example. Claro salió y Clara salió y la conoció. And here we would never Clara.
Okay.
This kind of word, la, a direct object, never gets the Clara phrase. Never. I'm going to say 0.01% of the time. I have heard on very rare occasion an phrase plugged in. The whole, we never hear a clarifying phrase with lo, la, los, and las. Direct objects. Fingers are all over the keyboard. Lo, la, los, or las. They never boy, I got to get my keys right. Never use the clarifier phrase. They do not. But with le and les, with indirect objects, you often do use clarifying phrase with plus a name. Okay, so this is something that is it's actually got a kind of a grammatical term tag to it, redundancy. Redundancy meaning unnecessary repetition. Redundancy is encouraged with indirect objects, indirect object pronouns. So usually object pronouns happen to tell who or what received an action. With direct objects, they exist so that we never have to have redundancy. They exist specifically to shorten an idea and to keep you from repeating the word. So the lo, la, los, las, those are plugged in specifically to do the job of, I don't have to repeat a longer word. Okay? But le and les, le and les are kind of oddballs in that that redundancy of we use the pronoun to shorten, but you know what? We're also going to plug in the name of the person. Doesn't that defeat the purpose? Why don't we say, and people will often ask me this, And sadly, I just have to say, because that's the way it is. Why don't we just say, María dijo a Tomás.
Right.
Mary said to Tom. Why don't we just say that? Mary told Tom. Mary said to Tom, right? Because that verb dijo, it both means told or said. It can be translated either way. Why not just leave it like that? But sadly, in Spanish, you'll almost never, what percentage will I tag on this? 80%. You'll almost never hear it said just this way. Almost never. Because the way that people will naturally say this, and you have to look at it as these words hang together in a phrase, is María le dijo a Tomás. That is the way you're going to hear it. That is that is the happy phrase. You will not hear it said this way. No. It'll be redundant.
Okay.
This will mean Mary told him. But the reason we have this redundancy in Spanish is because this word has no gender.
Mm.
And because that word le has no gender, unlike lo, la, los, las, and we know a gender is pegged on, le has no gender pegged on. And therefore, it can mean many people. It can mean him. It can mean her. It can mean the big formal you, usted.
Yeah.
The you comes into this. It can mean this many different kinds of human beings. And because of that, that is why the redundant thing is so frequently paired up. So in other words, it is perfectly okay to just say this, María le dijo, and leave that alone. It is perfectly grammatically okay. And it is equally grammatically okay to tag in the a Tomás. So the redundancy that is built in is because this word le can be murky, can mean many different people. So it is very, very common to plug all this information in. It is equally okay to leave out the a Tomás if you think it's, well, we're in the middle of the conversation. They'll know who I mean. If we have lots of information built in from 3-4 sentences before María le dijo, we may leave out the a Tomás. We may plug the whole thing in, right? But no one will ever say, well, really, very seldom will anybody say, María dijo a Tomás. That is considered slightly odd.
Okay.
To the English way of thinking, because we want to apply logic.
Mm-hmm.
And we do. We may not say it, even if you say, I hate grammar, I don't remember grammar, I don't remember all that crap. Even if you say that, by golly, your brain is thinking it.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And so with le and les, redundancy is good. And redundancy is frequent. With lo, la, los, and las, redundancy is not okay. Because its sole purpose is to stand in for a thing. Lo, la, los, and las are like the stand-ins from Hollywood. You know, when a stunt person falls off the cliff in a movie, when a stunt person flies over the hood of a car because he got hit by a car, and you don't have the real star there because the real star might get hurt, and now you got to stop filming. You send in the stunt guy. Lola and Los and Las are the stunt guy. They go in there, so the real deal doesn't have to appear there at all. Yeah. So what happens is frequently we do have to think in those chunks. So Trish, what you brought up of, you learn that these words just hang together. Yeah. And the only way to really get that and on a really deep level is to listen to a lot of people talking and to read. And this is where actually reading helps, because when people are talking, the pressure to process that mentally is like, it's nerve-wracking. Yeah. But when you read it, you have time to sit and say, what did that mean? And go back and look at it again. You have time. You have time with reading. You don't have time with speaking. So that is where actually reading a lot is super, super helpful, because you may not be thinking about it, but that process of having the time to think about it and to figure out what it means helps you to later detect it when you hear it. Yeah. And sadly, don't we all wish it just happened right away? And it just doesn't. It doesn't. But yeah. But there is a different way of thinking. And the different way of thinking in Spanish is that there is a different word order. So the expectation when two people speak Spanish, the expectation is they're going to expect to hear pronouns come out first. And that you won't be talking about who's doing something. You'll be talking about who's on the receiving end first. And then, everything is wrapped up in telling me who did that in the verb. We don't know that. And it's a very hard thing to get used to. Okay. Any other questions from our little love story, which was so cute?
Yeah, I had another question that
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking I stumbled on. Maybe we all stumbled onto a new verb that wasn't what I expected. So it was when she was saying that Tomas told them like where to go to taste the local food. And she used the word, or she used the conjugated verb te gustaron. And
Gustaron?
Well, if you can find it, I thought it was de gustar. One, kind of, it's got gustar in there, which kind of got my curiosity. But I thought that we had the verb probar for tasting.
Oh, yeah, probar is for tasting. Yes. And yeah, I've got to kind of let it roll and see if I can find. I'm trying to remember where he talked about that. Oh,
Well, it was after they met.
yeah.
She was saying how he gave them all kinds of tips for what to see and do.
Les dio okay, so I'm going to let it roll a little bit from here. Les dio recomendaciones. He gave them. So the les is what people expect to hear. Les, to them. Okay. Les dio. He gave. And the dio, we know we're talking about the boy. Es Tomás, sí. Les dio recomendaciones de lugares que visitar. Remember that they were in Granada, so the degustaron.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's just a synonym. It's just a synonym for probar. Okay, like we might say, okay, it's a synonym for probar, this degustaron instead of probaron. She could have said probaron la gastronomía local, and that would have been perfectly acceptable, but she just chose to use a synonym instead. So it would be like us saying sampled instead of tasted. That's it.
Okay, but it also caught my eye that that must be some, well, it looks like it's some kind of offshoot that kind of started with the root Gustave.
Yeah.
Which I couldn't quite make the connection between gives me pleasure and tasting. But
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it is. Yeah, so you're right. It's something that you may not get the actual root word right away. And I'm trying to pull this up. And I think it's more a mexicanismo. Te gusta. Momento. Okay, so let me pull up. This is one of those things where when you hear it, you may kind of get an idea, but you may not know an exact thing, but you kind of know what they mean because they talk about foods and recommendations and trying stuff. And so they give degustar as savor or taste. So it's just a synonym for probar. So she was just getting a little fancy with you on that one. Degustar is a new word. Now, typical, what will be the number one word that most people will learn first? They'll learn probar first. Probar will be like the most common word. Degustar will be a fancier word, but a synonym. Okay. Bien. But when people learn how to express the idea of taste, they'll learn probar first before degustar. Okay. And degustar does not operate in that function like gustar does. Degustar will go through all the conjugations, the yo, tú, the el, usted. Yeah? They tried the local food, local cuisine. Yeah. Okay, vale. Bueno, otra pregunta. Any other question about that little video? It had lots of little nuggets in there, didn't it? Lots of good nuggets, which is why I like those. Nada más? Okay. Let's take a look at our little pronouns. Our little pronouns, both direct and indirect. And we're going to talk a little bit about both at once today, too, because we talked a little bit about that last time, but not a ton. Okay. And we'll have some things to listen for. And these are going to be good because after we go through these written, we have time to read it and think about it and mull it over examples. We're going to have some examples where they just throw one or the other at you, and you got to do it on the fly, which is harder. So we always do the easier stuff first. God, don't do the hard stuff first. Yeah. Man, that's awful. Okay. I had you take a look at we did these first examples where you were deciding, should it be direct or indirect? Because that's the hard part for us. When we know to expect lo, la, los, las, we're easy peasy in good territory. When we know to expect le or les, we're in good territory. But when we got to figure out, do I use a direct or indirect? That's hard. Okay, so we have these examples here. And then I asked you to look through the examples here at the section number 2, right here, and then the last segment here. And notice they gave a lot of examples because this is very hard for English speakers. Okay. Were there any examples from here that didn't make sense to you? Because if they didn't, it might be because you don't understand what the verb is. And therefore you can't figure out from the verb, is it direct or indirect? So a lot of the clue with figuring out is it direct or indirect is knowing what the verb itself means. Because we have to know what kind of action is being performed. Is there anything in there that did not make sense?
Probably, but I don't remember.
Okay. Okay. Let me pick one that may be a little harder.
Like, how about number 20? Is she looking for a person, or she's looking for a dress in the store, or it doesn't really matter?
It doesn't really matter.
She's looking for something in the
She's
store.
looking for something. So the key here is, what does this verb here mean, busca? ¿Qué quiere decir busca? What does busca mean?
Look for.
Look for.
Search for, look for, right. Busca means look for. So when we, knowing what that verb means is the whole key. I asked the question, okay, do you look, would we ever say, I look for to him?
No.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It can't be indirect. Buscar can't use an indirect. Buscar can only use a direct. Now, I can take that action, look for, and look for, who do I look for or what do I look for? Could either one work? Yeah, I could be looking for a mailbox. I could be looking for a street sign. I could be looking for a bus. Those are things. I could be looking for a police officer. I could be looking for a clerk in a store. I could be looking for my family. I could be looking for people, or I could be looking for things. Buscar only takes a direct object. Boom. End of story. And we would never say the workaround. We would never say, I look for to him. Although sometimes I can see why this might be a little bit, okay, it can be murky in this respect. Indirect objects means you do something to somebody or for somebody, and buscar means to look for, but that's all wrapped up in that action, buscar. So it can only be a direct object for buscar, right? For regalar, that's a really special verb, which actually you hear quite a lot. The verb we learn first for give is dar, okay? And dar usually works with both a direct object and an indirect. We give a thing to somebody. So dar will operate with two. Regalar is like that. Regalar is a step up from dar. It's more specific than dar. Regalar means to give a gift. Not to give just some utilitarian thing, but to give something as a gift. And in order to say that in English, we need to add a whole bunch of extra words, to give a gift. Okay. Or we might say gifted. I gifted him, blah, 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 this thing. I gifted my 16-year-old son a brand new car. No, I didn't. So regalar means to gift. Yeah. A quien, and this gives us a clue that it's going to be an indirect. Yeah. And this is a redundancy example. To whom did you give flowers? And if I were plugging something in for flores, flores would have to be like gone from the sentence. Yeah. So that can only be the le example there. Give somebody whom did you give flowers? Or in English, we would more commonly say, even though it's grammatically incorrect, who did you give flowers to? Yeah. Who'd you give flowers to? And that's got to have the indirect. Yeah. Bien. But notice that certain verbs like pedir use an indirect a lot. Certain verb like regalar, because it's more specific than dar, use indirect a lot. Certain verbs like traer, you bring something to somebody, use indirects a lot. Certain verbs can't use an indirect, can only use a direct.
Yeah.
Llamar, you call somebody, or I guess you consider your dog, your pet a thing. Yeah. Like you respect people. Okay. Indirect objects have to be people, but people can also be direct objects. Respetar, respect, only takes a direct object. You don't respect a thing to somebody, right? Respetar only takes a direct, yeah? Encontrar, find, only takes a direct. You find a person or a thing, it only takes a direct. We don't find something to somebody. We don't respect something to somebody. Yeah. We can sell something to somebody, but you can't respect something to somebody. Respetar can only take a direct. Llamar, except in very isolated situations, is only going to take a direct. Yeah. Saber, you know something. It's only going to take a direct. You look for somebody or something. It is only going to take a direct. So knowing what kind of activity, certain verbs take only direct objects. Certain verbs take both a direct and an indirect. Yeah. Another example of this is odio. I hate them. You don't hate something to somebody. Odiar, to hate, only takes a direct. That's all it can take. Bien. Okay. Visitar, to visit. You don't visit something to somebody. Visitar can only take a direct. Okay. Bien. Yeah. See. But yeah, knowing that's why basically I like to have people think about this idea. Certain kinds of verbs, like these verbs on the screen, often use the le and les. It's helpful to know which kinds of verbs often use those indirects. And this is a big chunk of them, right? It doesn't mean they're the only verbs that use indirect objects, but really, really frequently they're paired up that way. And people expect to hear it that way. So just like dar, regalar is a higher level word and more specific than dar. Contar is a little bit more specific than decir, to say. Contar is a little more specific in that it means you've got a long story, and sit back, it's going to take a little while because there's going to be a lot of information. Yeah, a lot of information here. Decir is kind of short, telling you something. But contar is, ooh, sit back. I got a series of events to tell you the whole lowdown. Yeah. So it's helpful to know which verbs do that. Okay. Bien. Let's take a look at, we're going to bump this up a layer. Two things together. Oh, get my stuff to disappear. Okay. Ooh, let's look at this piece. When a verb takes both a direct and an indirect object pronoun, when both those elements are there together, the indirect comes first. Now, the reason that's not hard to figure out is that the human being comes first. Somebody gets something. Like I give the ball to the kid. I tell my friends a joke. So when I use two object pronouns, both an indirect and a direct, and I'm using a little pronoun for each one of those, the human being will always come first, and then the thing that they're getting, and then that action. Okay. So that's always the order it goes in. So indirect objects, me, te, nos, and then those iffy ones of le or les, they always come first. And then after that will come a lo, a la, a los, or a las. Okay. But now we got one other little screwy thing that's going to come in here, and that's going to be in Spanish. Yeah. If the indirect object is le or les, and I'm pairing it up with a second pronoun, you can't le lo. Le. If the indirect object, if number one, the human being part, is either a le or a les, and I'm adding a second thing, a second pronoun, that le or les is going to have to turn into se. And it's a phonetic thing. Because in Spanish, they don't like la, 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 la to have to be paired up right together. Okay, so let's see an example. ¿Quién le explica los problemas a Ana? ¿Quién le explica los problemas a Ana? Who's explaining the problems to Ana? Paco has this job. Paco's doing this. Paco pairs up with explica. Paco answers the quién part, right? Paco, okay. But now we got the problem of, ¿cómo se dice? Paco explains them to her. Them, meaning the problems, to her, meaning Ana. And in order to say that, it's got to be Paco se los explica. And it's got to be se los. Because this in Spanish is a no-no. Le los is a no-no. No se puede. You can't. Le los explica. Le los explica. If you're trying to talk fast, le los explica is a mouthful. Literally, it's too hard to say. And that's why you can't le lo or le los. If the le is talking about Ana and I'm pairing it up with a second pronoun, that le has to turn into a los. I could say, Paco me los explica. That's fine. Not hard to say. Paco te los explica. Easy to say. Pacos nos los explica. A little harder to say, but we can do that, right? Me, te, and nos, no big deal. But le, los, can't do that. Le or los has to change into se. Okay. Let's take a look at another example with this. ¿Quién te presta su ropa nueva? ¿Quién te presta su ropa nueva? Who's loaning you their new clothes? And we're saying the who part is answered by Luis. Luis presta. Luis plays nice with presta, right? Because can is in the question means we don't know who's doing this. We're asking. Oh, Luis is loaning. Who's loaning them to you? Luis is doing this to me, and something is going to stand. So, yeah, we're answering the question, ¿Quién te presta? Who's loaning you some clothes? Luis me presta. And Luis, we want to get rid of this whole three-word chunk.
Mhm.
Luis me
La. Me la.
presta. And su ropa nueva, that's redundancy we want to eliminate. We want to eliminate completely su ropa nueva. I don't want to repeat anything about su ropa nueva again. I want to just plug in the word la to stand in for that whole three-word set. Okay. ¿A quién le manda a Juan esas rosas? And this one's a little bit hard. ¿A quién le manda Juan esas rosas? Juan is sending roses to somebody. He's sending them to Elena. And here we want a redundant, right?
Mm-hmm.
The a Elena normally would be represented with le, but now I'm going to have two pronouns. I'm going to talk about le, a Elena, and esas rosas, those roses. And I got to have them work working together. So I can't say le las. Las is talking about rosas, but le has to be. Juan se las manda a Elena, and that redundancy of a Elena is fine. It's good. Se las manda a Elena is perfectly okay. And actually answering that question, if you just said se las manda with no a Elena, it wouldn't really answer this question fully. It's just one of those things. They will use the redundant pronoun and the a Elena. Okay. ¿Quién les dice a ustedes? Here's you guys. ¿Quién les dice a ustedes la respuesta? The a ustedes, les is who that is talking about. Who is telling you guys the answer? Oh, they. It's a group of people. Okay, that's kind of fuzzy. Now this one's kind of tough. Who's telling you guys the answer? Oh, they're telling
Nos.
us. When we're answering that question, that becomes a nos. Nos. Ellos nos la dicen. This is a little bit of mental gymnastics. This is because we're answering a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, who's telling you guys? Oh, they're telling us. They're telling it to us, it meaning the answer, la respuesta. So we've got a la, which is getting rid of the whole phrase of la respuesta and the nos. ¿Quién me da estos billetes? Who's supposed to give me these tickets? Oh, I'm giving them to you. Yo?
Te.
Okay.
Te.
Te los doy. Yo te los doy without the a ti would be okay. The a ti here is just emphatic. It isn't needed to clarify. It's just because somebody felt like being emphatic. Okay. Yo te los doy. Bien, and it's because we're answering the question, right? The reason it's me here and te here is because we're asking a question and then we're answering the question. Okay. ¿A quiénes les cuentas el chiste? And here cuentas means you're telling a long joke. Yeah, the chiste. Chiste is a joke. ¿A quiénes? Who are you telling the joke to? And we want to say, I'm telling them. Well, normally them would be this.
Yes.
But now we also want to plug in the chiste part as an it. I'm telling it to them. I'm telling it to them. And I can't say les lo cuento.
Selo.
Selo.
Oh, selo.
Se lo cuento. The les has to turn into se because I can't say les lo. Les lo is too much tongue work. Les lo. Too much tongue work. And we'll do just a couple more here. ¿Quién se muestra? Muestra means show. Like here, show. That's muestra. ¿Quién les muestra a ustedes las fotos? Who's showing you guys? Les a ustedes. Who's showing you guys the pictures?
Ana.
Ana.
No.
Ana muestra. Ana muestra. Ana.
Sela.
No.
Sela.
Ooh.
No. Nos.
Will it be se?
No. Would it be nos?
It'll be nos.
Oh, say nos.
Los.
Because we're saying, who's showing you guys? Oh, she's showing them to
Us.
Us.
To us.
us. Yeah. And here, I know it won't be a say last because we're answering the who's showing it to you guys. Oh, we're answering the question. It becomes a to us. Okay. Let's look at another one because these are answering questions. They're a little different. ¿Quién te regala el anillo? Ooh, who's giving you the ring? And it's a gift. Who's giving you the ring? Oh, my boyfriend. My boyfriend or fiance might be the my
Melo.
serious
Melo.
boyfriend if he's a novio.
Melo.
Melo.
Mhm.
Me lo regala. Now, you might notice when we're answering that question, ¿quién te regala? Isn't it easier to get from te regala to me lo? It's easier to do that, but
Mhm.
it is harder to work from this to
Mhm.
nos, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's harder to do. Okay, we're going to do the two last ones to finish these up. ¿A quién le escriben ustedes una tarjeta? To whom? And
Did they
you
write?
guys are doing the writing.
Yeah.
Who are you writing the card to? Who are you guys reading the card to? Nosotros escribimos, that's answering the escriben
Selo.
ustedes. So we're writing the card to Luis. We're writing it to Luis.
Selo.
Sela.
Sela.
Mhm.
Sela. Nosotros se la escribimos a Luis. We're writing it, la, gets rid of una tarjeta, and the se is, it's a redundant, and we're explaining who that se is, Luis. And se is even fuzzier than le, even fuzzier than les, because now in this function, se could mean to him, to her, to you, usted, to you guys, ustedes, to them,
Mhm.
to them, a bunch of guys, to them, a bunch of gals, to them, a mixed group. Se is even fuzzier than le or les because it means a whole bunch of people. Okay. Bien. Okay. ¿Quién me paga las cuentas? Who's paying? And here, las cuentas means a bunch of bills.
Right.
Who's paying all this stuff? To me. Oh, I'm paying it to
You.
you. Yo,
Celos.
Say
Celos.
lo- say
It
las.
could be celas. It could be celas if I'm being formal. If I'm on friendly terms, it might be
Celos.
celas pago. And here it isn't really, well, actually, it probably will be because, well, no, we don't know. Yeah, it could be. It could go either way. Te las pago or se las pago, right? Bien. Okay. And I'm going to give you the link to that, right? So that you can practice that a little on your own. I don't think that's got an extra set. No, that's just got that. So I'll give that on your own. So that gives you time to do the ba-da-bum because you're reading it. You have time to think about it. And it is kind of mental gymnastics because we're going from questions to answers, right? But that's kind of how that works. We're going to move from that. Whoa, momento. Okay, bien. Actually, I think we need the lead up to explain. So I got. Okay, we're going to see some scenarios where they're going to mix these up willy-nilly. And this is listening. So sadly, well, I think they give you subtitles through all of these. So it won't be sadly. They will tell you what to expect. It's a little bit better than real life where they don't tell you at all what to expect. And it's like, oh crap, I got to think about this on my own. But there's a whole series of these. And I'm going to give you the main link. We'll probably get through maybe 2 of these. And I think there'll be a third one that you can listen to on your own. And they're short snippets, so they're not great big long stories. And you do get subtitles. But I'm going to have to turn on my sound here. And she's going to give a lead up. And some of these are going to be indirect, if I'm not mistaken, and some will be direct. I think this is a mix of the two. Okay. Oh.
How do we find the indirect object in a sentence? You can find the indirect object in a sentence by asking yourself to whom or for whom an action was done. In this example, what or who is the indirect object? Remember, to find it, ask, for whom did Mateo buy a rose? The answer is for Anita. Therefore, the indirect object is Anita, and the matching indirect object pronoun is le. In Spanish, it's common for both an indirect object pronoun and the noun to which it refers to appear together. In this example, Luis is the indirect object. The indirect object pronoun le can be used with the indirect object a Luis, as in the first example, or without it, as in the second example. Because the third-person indirect object pronoun is gender neutral, it's common to maintain the indirect object phrase in the sentence for clarification. Even without a Luis, le still indicates to whom the direct object, el balón, is thrown. However, because third-person indirect object pronouns do not indicate gender, this sentence could also mean Maria threw the ball to her, Maria threw the ball to it, Maria threw the ball to you, formal. To avoid confusion, Spanish speakers will often clarify to whom a pronoun refers by using both the indirect object and the indirect object pronoun.
So this is that idea of the redundancy. What they're trying to preface this little series is to say that redundancy with le and les is super common, and it is not seen as, well, why are you saying that? We already know with Luis. But they do. It is just what they do. Okay. So Marisa bought the flowers for her daughters becomes, and here we're not combining 2 together. They're just using 1. So Marisa les compró las flores a sus hijas, right? And it is totally redundant. She bought them the flowers. And because that word les is gender neutral, that is why we wind up having that redundancy. And yes, I know a pronoun is supposed to mean I don't have to use extra words, but we do use the extra words. We just do. So there it is.
Here are some common verbs that take an indirect object.
And Just like I gave you a list,
comprarle
these are
algo,
common.
contarle algo, darle algo, decirle algo, escribirle algo, mandarle algo. And here are some more.
I-
Mostrarle
Yeah,
algo,
we can't give you just
pedirle
one list.
algo,
There are a bunch.
regalarle algo, servirle algo, traerle algo. Bearing this in mind, how would you say, they told us something important?
Okay, so we can't give you a definitive list and say, oh, now if you know these, you know them all, because there's just no way to do that. So, okay, it is helpful to know that certain verbs that come up a lot are high frequency kinds of activities. It's helpful to know, oh, these high frequency words often use a le or a les. So, or the metenos. In this case, they're keeping it easier with the metenos. Como se dice? They told us something important. They told us is
Nos.
Nos.
nos contaron. And here's the thing where nos contaron. It's important to know when people hear nos, they're thinking in Spanish word order. And Spanish word order is to us, they told. To us, they told. That's the way they think it. That is literally the way they think it. Nos contó. For us to think in that order of us, they told. If you start talking like Yoda from Star Wars, that's the way they think it. Yes. But we don't, yes, to us, it's not, oh, it's like Yoda, Star Wars. Yeah. That is the order in which they think it. And that's why it feels natural to them, but it sure does not to us. So, nos contaron. Okay, object leads off.
Hola María de Los Ángeles. ¿Puedo pasar? ¿Té? Traigo unos chocolates.
Oh, and he paused there. Normally people wouldn't pause. Which word did you hear? Traigo means I'm. Oh, and look, when you hover over this, it'll give you the translation.
Oh.
Look at that. All you got to do is take your cursor over, hover. Oh, can I come in? I brought you some chocolates.
Te traigo.
Right. I brought you, but remember, when people say that, they are literally thinking, you, I'm bringing some chocolates. That's the way they're thinking.
¿Qué haces aquí, Miguel?
Take-
No teníamos una cita, ¿no? Además, la cabeza y tengo un cliente en 15 minutos.
Now, you should know this couple beforehand. I think somewhere she explains that for it. They're going through a messy divorce, which you would be helpful to know. She's going to seem like very curt with him because they're going through a divorce and there are kids involved and they're not having a good time. So she's going to see this way. Yeah. What are you doing here? She's not being very nice. What are you doing here? We didn't have an appointment, did he? Did we? Besides, I have a headache and I've got a client in 15 minutes. So yeah, it kind of helps on the con. She's going to be not the nicest person in the world. He brings her chocolates and she's like not being super nice. Okay. So my head hurts.
Me.
Me. And these are easier because we don't have the le and les in here, but duele could take le or les, right? Okay, so here it's a me.
No, pero envié un mail esta mañana de que estaría por el barrio.
Oh, no, but I emailed you this morning to say I'd be in the neighborhood.
Should be te.
Yeah. For a ti, it's a te.
¿Qué quieres? Le di mi palabra a mi abogado de que no hablaría contigo sin él delante.
Woo. Okay. Ooh, we got an hablaría. Would talk. Okay. What do you want? I gave my word to my lawyer that I wouldn't talk to you if he wasn't present. Ooh, yeah, that kind of stuff happens. Yeah, okay.
I thought I heard lay.
Yeah.
Lay DA?
And a mi abogado. A mi abogado.
Oh, so it's
If
the
she
lawyer that
just
you gave it to.
said, yeah. Now, Here's where in English, we are likely to just say, I gave my word to my lawyer. I told my lawyer. And in Spanish, it'd be very, very odd to have no pronoun. Nobody would just say, di mi palabra a mi abogado. Almost nobody would say that. It sounds naked to them, like something is missing. Okay, it'll always be phrased with both the le di and the a mi abogado. I know English reasoning is, I gave my lawyer, I gave him a promise. I told him. And we don't say that him word in English, but they do in Spanish. So it's got to be a le.
Solo quería traer los papeles del divorcio actualizados.
Oh, it's divorce papers. God, this is painful. I just wanted to bring you the updated divorce papers. I just wanted to bring you. And here will be a you. And obviously they know each other by first name. So yes, they. Okay.
¿Los puedes enviar con un mensajero?
Ooh, and we want an indirect object. Can't you send them to me with a messenger? Oh, she doesn't even want to see him. Yikes.
You may.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and here they tell you they want an
Fíjate que
ani.
somos personas. Te los quería traer en persona, María de los Ángeles.
Yeah. Did you forget we're people? He's trying to make nice. I wanted to bring them. Yeah. I wanted to bring them to you in person.
So tell us.
Los. And what's the los?
The paper.
The papers.
Yeah.
Los is talking about los papeles del divorcio.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we got a te.
¿Le cortaste el pelo a nuestra hija Mariana el pasado fin de semana?
And there is something. This is not about the divorce papers. This is not about the divorce papers. Cortaste means cut. Did you cut our daughter's hair? That's got nothing to do with it. She's not angry about the divorce papers. She's angry about the haircut. Ouch. Like totally different topic. She's mad about it. Did you cut our daughter's hair? And you cut the hair off of somebody. Here is the direct object, el pelo. And here's who it was cut off of. So who is Le referring to? He's talking about
Mariana.
he does not like that dad gave little girl the haircut. Why? I don't know. This is obviously just, yeah.
Sí, está guapísima, ¿verdad? También preparé una tarta de chocolate.
Oh, yes, she looks great. Guapísima. She looks super, super guapa. She looks really, really great. ¿Verdad? Doesn't she? I also made her a chocolate cake. And he's not saying I made it for her because we don't know what it is yet. And it is the chocolate cake. So we don't have an it. We only have una tarta de chocolate. But I made her a cake.
Le.
It has to be.
Le for her.
¿Olvidaste que es diabética?
Uh-oh.
Miguel, no puedes dar chocolate siempre que quieras.
Oh. Did you forget she's diabetic? Yeah, you can't give her chocolate whenever you want. Ooh, whenever you want to. Siempre que querías means whenever you feel like it. Yeah. You can't give her.
No le puedes. No le puedes.
No le puedes. And I'm not going to type it in yet because we have a question about the quieras. Siempre que quieras should be quieras, not quieres. Siempre que quieras is
No, you say
subjunctive.
querías before. It's not quieras, right?
It
the way you say it.
is quieras, not quieres. Siempre que is a little phrase that always needs a subjunctive. And siempre que means whenever. So let's do the whenever. Whenever you feel like it. Siempre que is one of those phrases that always needs a subjunctive, meaning it won't be quieres what you think it should be. It'll be quieras whenever you feel like it. It's a hypothetical. And that's why it goes into, yeah. But here, what we're focusing on is, Miguel, no le puedes dar chocolate. You can't give her. And the le is a her.
Y si tú te quieres cortar el pelo, adelante.
Adelante means forward, but yeah, what it really means. And if you want to cut your own hair, well, just go right ahead. If you want to have your hair cut,
Okay.
let's play her again.
Y si tú te quieres cortar el pelo, adelante.
Well, she's mad. Yeah, you heard it there.
Mhm.
If you want to cut your own
Sin
hair,
embargo,
go ahead.
¿podrías avisarme de que vas a cortarle el pelo a nuestra hija antes de hacerlo?
Well, she wants control. Yeah, she really wants control here. Sin embargo, however, nevertheless, podrías, she's being super formal, polite. Podrías, would you be able to let me know, to advise me ahead of time? Would you let me know that you're going to cut our daughter's hair before you do it? And the me is referring to
It's the
Referring
woman
to
speaking.
the
her.
woman who is
Referring to
speaking.
her.
Yeah.
Mariana mandó un mensaje de texto pidiéndote permiso, según ella me dijo.
Now he's excusing himself. And we didn't hear him say the word. Mariana texted you asking for permission. Or that's what she told me.
It has to be te.
Has to be te because we've got an ati. Mariana te mandó un mensaje de texto. Mariana texted you, asking you for permission, pidiéndote permiso. Según ella me dijo, according to that's what she told me. Oh, según means according to what she said to me. Okay.
¿Y vas a creerle a una niña? Tú eres el que tiene que enviar un mensaje y no Mariana.
Ooh. And you're going to believe a little girl? My daughter is sneaky. She does things behind my back. You're the one who has to send me the message, not Mariana. This woman is not forgiving. Y vas a creerle a una niña. Tú eres el que tiene que enviar
May.
un mensaje.
No he venido a discutir.
Ah.
Solo quería dar los papeles y saludarte.
Yeah. Come on. I didn't come here to argue. Discutir looks like discuss, but in this context, it really means fight about. Verbally fight, not fist fight. I have not come here to fight. I didn't come here to argue. Yeah. I just wanted to give you the papers and say hi. And we need solo
Okay.
te quería.
Cuando los revises, tu abogado también puede llamar al mío. Tú también puedes avisar si necesitas comprender alguno de los términos.
Ooh. Okay. What does that mean? Revisar means to revise, meaning look it over. Yeah. Revisar means look it over, but they translate it as check them out, which is fine. That's what it means. Once you've checked them out, cuando los revises, when you check them out, meaning the papers, tu abogado también puede llamar al mío. Your lawyer can also call mine. You can also call him if you need to understand any of the terms. Tú también.
Le puedes.
Right. They're saying we want to talk about a mi abogado. right? Tú también le puedes avisar. You can also call him.
¿Piensas que no comprendo el lenguaje jurídico? Tú eres abogado, pero yo no soy tonta. Advierto que no juegues conmigo, Miguel.
This woman is pissed, man. Okay. ¿Piensas que no comprendo el lenguaje jurídico? Do you think I don't understand legal language? You're a lawyer, but I'm not stupid. Man, this one is like full of piss and vinegar. He's really staying pretty cool, isn't he? I give this guy credit. He is being very, very calm. I warn you not to play with me.
Te.
Yeah. Te advierto que no juegues conmigo. And it's not juegas. It's jugar, AR verb, but it's that I warn you that you should not do this.
Mm.
It's juegues because I'm warning that you better not do this. So, te advierto que no juegues.
No te enfades. Solo que mi abogado me explicó que hay algunos términos complicados de entender.
Yeah. I'm surprised I used enfadar here. I don't think this was from Spain. Enfadar is the same as enojar, to get mad.
Anger?
Don't get
anger me.
mad.
Yeah.
Don't get mad. Don't get all worked up.
Te. I heard him say.
Yeah,
No
don't
te-
get yourself all worked up. No te enfades. Solo que mi abogado me explicó. My lawyer just explained to me that there are a few terms, there are a few complicated terms. There are a few complicated terms to understand. Complicados de entender means hard to understand. So let's see how they, yeah, don't get angry. It's just that my lawyer explained to me that some terms are hard to understand. So, no te enfades. Bien.
Haré una llamada a tu abogado tan inteligente si tengo dudas.
Are is a future. And it doesn't mean like super soon. It's like we don't know when in the future. So she is from a future. I'll call your super smart lawyer. Tu abogado tan inteligente. We might say your smarty pants lawyer. Yeah. I'll call your super smarts lawyer if I have any questions. I will make a phone call to your lawyer. A
Le.
tu abogado.
Le.
Le.
It
Right.
has,
She's not saying I'll call you. It's a tu abogado, your lawyer, meaning I'll call him. Le.
Te agradezco tu visita. Ahora, si no te importa, tengo mucho trabajo.
Ooh,
te-
I appreciate your visit. Te agradezco means I thank you. Agradecer means, oh, you see gracias almost without the C. You see gracias kind of buried in the middle. Agradezco means to, agradecer means to give thanks. I thank you for your visit. And now, if you don't mind, si no te importa, if it doesn't matter to you, if you don't care about it, if you don't mind, I've got a lot of work, yeah, to do. So we've got, thank you.
Te.
Te agradezco.
¿Puedes
Ok.
dar un abrazo a la niña de mi parte?
Can you give a hug a la niña de mi parte? Can you give little girl a hug de mi parte for me?
le puedes
te-
dar.
le puedes.
And we need an a la niña.
No, le.
Le. Can you give little sweetie girl a hug for me? Yeah. Not can you give me a hug? Yeah. Me puedes dar un abrazo would be can you give me a hug? And because he's giving her divorce papers, I don't think she's in that mood. So yeah, obviously she's not in a very receptive mood. Can you hug our dog.
Claro. Ahora, ¿puedes dejar sola? Tengo que trabajar.
Oh, and now,
Meh.
can you leave me alone? I have some work to do. Yeah, see, eso es. Okay, so what they're gonna do, I'll give you a link to that. There are a number of, they're not necessarily all related stories. Some of them are kind of related with the same characters, some have different characters. But there's like I think it's, okay, it's a number 3 segment and a number 4 and a number 5 segment. So you can go through and listen to other conversational uses. And you'll notice they, mixed up all kinds of pronouns. You're hearing them in all different orders there. Okay? Todo bien? All good?
See,
Karen, do you want a reading article, not related to grammar, totally reading article kind of thing to have in the interim week? Just for,
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
see, okay. I've got a great article. I'm still working on it because I have to pare it down. It's an article, an honest to God, for real article out of the newspaper about the Colorado water agreement that they're working on between us, California y Nevada y ¿qué más? The multi-state agreement, but it's extremely long. And rather than sending you out to read 8 pages, do you really want 8 pages? Probably not. Yeah.
no,
Gonna pare it down. So,
Gracias.
and when I try to go into Chat GPT to ask it to do that for me, like super, super fast, it leaves out too much stuff and then it leaves me 2 paragraphs and that's not enough. So I have to find the happy medium. So I will have to, I'm still partway through doing that. And I'm going to plug in some words. I'm going to leave some words that I think you can figure out from context, but I'm going to plug in some words so you don't have to look up a whole lot of vocabulary. There might be a word, one or two things I leave for you to look up on your own, but not a ton. Okay.
Practice
Great.
for the
Go ahead.
indirect and direct object is also good.
Yeah. And I'll send you that link because it's got other examples that with indirect and direct objects that you can do new ones
Right.
that you haven't heard before. Yeah. And you can hover over that. You can see, get a translation and, and they do a good job of telling you which pronoun they expect to be in there. Okay.
Yeah,
Bien.
great.
Okay.
And this will be an official class? This
Oh,
will
see,
be an
yes. This
This
class
will
is
be an
running.
official
This
class.
class is running for summer. Yes. So
Good.
we have no class next week at all because that is a week off. And then we start up the first week of June, and I will send you a link to the Zoom the week before.
Great.
So next Friday, this Friday you will get no link at all. Next Friday, I will send a link for the first class. And I'm going to wait I'm not going to send it super early, that link, because typically there often are like 1 or 2 people who join at the last minute, and I'll be sending out, who did I send that link to? And I don't want to do that. So, okay. Yeah,
All
all
right.
at once.
Well,
Adios.
I will not see you guys in
See.
summer, but I will be back in fall, hopefully.
Okay.
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 Great.
Está bien.
I missed you at
Fantástico.
coffee, Juanita. Sorry you couldn't
Yeah.
come.
I know we can do it again. So I mean,
Well-
June I can still do it in June, but July I'm gonna leave in mid of July.
That's your big trip.
Yes.